So I never would have thought that I would be like coming online and spilling family secrets. But here's the thing. When it comes to a point, you know, when you get older and you start to learn everybody's tea and stuff starts to make sense and all of that, I found out that it had a lot to do with me and why I was the way I was as a person and all my traumas. And my whole journey started organically, you know. It just took me a while to figure out what was going on, and when I did, it completely changed my life, and not in a good way. So I'm gonna tell y'all the story of how I think I have the worst family ever known to man. Okay, so I gotta give y'all some background so this makes sense. Every detail of this story like molds into other ones, and I don't know if I'm gonna make this like a part, you know, a parted up series or something like that, but I might have to, because this will be the longest video ever in fucking history. So starting out, I'm originally from Dallas. My mom met my dad in Dallas when she was 19. She left home. Home life for my mom and her siblings were very, very bad. My mom was born in the 70s. They didn't really have a lot of money. My grandmother was a nurse, and she went to school. She worked like crazy, and she already had 3 kids by the age of, I think, 20 or so. I don't know. But my mom is the second oldest, and my grandma met this guy. She marries him, and he was assaulting her daughters, which slowly caused them to leave home, and leave home earlier than they would have wanted to, and to escape the household. So everybody did what they needed to do to get out of the house, right? Well, my mom and her mom, of course, were not on good terms, so she leaves. She goes to Dallas and starts her life. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold, y'all. And I got allergies real bad. It's just not letting up on me. Okay, anyways, my mom meets my dad. They have me. My dad thinks he's damn El Chapo. So you know what that means, right? So he's doing it, and they have like this, relationship where that's their thing. It comes to a point where my dad he's bringing drama into her life, like duh, but he's bringing drama into her life. My dad was like 37, 38 when they had me. My mom was 22 when she had me. So they had been together for quite some time. And stuff with baby mamas, other kids, child support, jail, like all types of stuff had come into play. And my mom didn't want no more of it because they had me, and she wanted me to have a stable life. So she decides to get a career going and do whatever she needs to do to, be more accomplished legally. So she does that, and he gets further and further down into his addictions of the things that he was selling. So it comes to a point where she gets back cool with my grandma. So we have been traveling back and forth. So I have met my grandmother. Now, my grandmother had 5 girls in total. The last 2 were like around my age. So my mom's the second oldest. I'm the first grandchild. 2 other girls are still in school, middle school and high school to be exact. One's a freshman and one is in middle school. They're 2 years apart. So I've been meeting them on and off since I was a baby. Now, at this point, fast forward up until I am about 6, I think. I go to visit my grandma one summer, and I tell her all the stuff that I had witnessed, and it was so inappropriate, the type of child that I was. I would make, like, jokes about BALLS's. Like, it was very inappropriate. I was bounced around a lot with caregivers while my mom worked, and my dad did what any, other person, the typical hood dad story, right? And he's taking me everywhere with him. So I'm watching him with the DRUGSs. I'm watching him with these unsavory people. I'm literally there. I already had my first encounter with someone being inappropriate with me. So that was, a tipping point, some kind of way. When I met my grandmother, I tell her all these things. Because, little kids blab, you don't know no better. And she tells my mom, absolutely not. She needs to come stay with me until you get your together. My mom is none the wiser. She has no clue. And my mom works these jobs where she's working like 16, 15 hours a day. Like, she see me off to school, and then she see me in the bed, and she get back. She's not really, she's working. She's trying to make a better life. But in exchange for that, she lost a relationship with me. And that still was a problem with us. So during that summer, I spent the whole summer with my grandma and my grandpa, and I loved them. They poured into me. They took me everywhere. They treated me like I was their own. And my 2 aunts, we had our moments, right, where things would be normal and things would be cool, and then they had this dark side to them where they would say stuff like, stay away from my mama. And mind you, I'm in elementary school. I'm like a little 6, 7-year-old. I actually stayed with them that summer and then started school officially at 7 the next year to enroll in school. And they would hate it because my grandma would comb my hair and she would sing with me. It was kind of like her getting a chance to redo what she felt like she didn't get to do with her children, or bring them up the way she wanted to. And all that opportunity she took to give it to me. Also, while still raising her last 2 girls who were way older than me. You don't need the same, things that you probably would have needed if you were my age, but it's some kind of way that struck a chord with them. They were very, very, very jealous. So it came to a point where my grandma was telling them, like, you're not allowed to spank or hit her. If she does something you don't like, or she does something that's dangerous, you need to come tell the adult. Come tell me. That didn't fly with them. It would come to, like, times where they would get angry with me and wait till she fell asleep and took me outside in the yard and would, like, torture me, like brutalize me, beat me up. I even had one of my aunts punch me in the face, like gave me 2 black eyes when I was 8. So stuff like that continued to happen. And then some very inappropriate abuse came from one of my aunties. So the second to the oldest one, I mean, not the second, but the older of the 2 girls, she was, abusing me in that way. And people always say, why don't children speak up? Nobody tells you that that's inappropriate. I didn't even know that what was happening was bad until I got older and was doing that with other people as an adult. And I'm like, I've done this before. So trigger warning, right? My home life was, horrible. And I had all the signs, like, the not getting along with my peers, the bad behavior, the things like that, it started to show in me as a child. But I don't think anybody really tried to figure out why. Because in the, the deep south, you just get your ass beat and that's it. Nobody gives a fuck. You need to follow the line, right? So, moving forward, the older of the two signs up for the military. First, she goes to college. So she's in college when she graduates. She signs up for the military, and our home life is just getting worse and worse and worse. Surprisingly, because I believe me and my aunt, we did tell my grandmother the things that she was doing. So she gave me my own room and the things that all of them were doing. Like, I wasn't silent during the ordeal. I did tell her what was going on. Now, during this time, my mom was traveling back and forth from Dallas to see me or spend time with me. She would send money. She would make sure that my grandmother didn't have to struggle to take care of me. And I just blanked most of that out of my head. I don't really remember her, and that still bothers her to this day. So, getting into the story, when I got older, my mom had come back into the picture full time. So she finishes up her career. She still had a lease and all of that back in Texas. So she comes to get me and my younger auntie, and we go get the rest of the stuff from the apartment. We see all the old people that we used to know, and we decide we're going to pack up and come back home. My mom had already found a career. She already was looking for a place. Like, she was working. She worked more than one job. She was exhausted, and she worked her ass off. And as a kid, I didn't see it that way, I really think parents should be more honest with their kids and, like, tell them the real shit that's going on, because you wouldn't have so many problems with your kid if you would just be truthful. I don't think there's any child on the planet that would have known their mom was busting their ass and be like, she'll never come to my games. They wouldn't. No, kids are born to love you. They don't know anything about you unless you show them otherwise. They are here to love you. They will give you anything you ever ask for as a parent and as a caregiver. Even the bad ones still get that. So, anyways, my mom is working. We moved back home to my grandma's house, and the younger of the two remaining children that was left, she was working. She was I had become attached to them because of the time that we spent, and I felt really, really close to them. Besides the abuse, also some of the stuff I didn't know was wrong, So there was no me speaking out to a certain degree. It was just my behavior. It was showing in my behavior and in my performance at school and in my morale and things like that. And people would just make it like, oh, this kid has a problem. This kid has an attitude. She needs to be adjusted, And that went on. My mom returns finally. And I think I am about 11 when she comes back. So she dropped me off at 6. She comes back at 11 full time. She had been in and out and back and forth, and she tried her best, honestly. So fast forward, my aunt, the oldest of the last two, I'm going to call her Tony. So Tony is the person who SA'd me, and Tanya is the sister. But both of them had their streaks where they would, like, be decent. Once I got older, some of the abuse stopped. So the SA stopped for my aunt after I had already been like 9 or 10. I think she stopped. Before my mother came back, she stopped, because she had went off to college and she had other things to do. So she really wasn't there to harm me anymore in that way. But when I got older, the discipline became, like, harsh. Really, really, really harsh. Like punching and slapping in the face or busting you in the lip and stuff. Or Tanya one day took me out to this dinner with her friends that we grew up with, the lady that lived down the street from us and grew up with us and my grandmother as like a mother figure to her. And it was at least 8 people at this dinner. This is when birthday dinners had first become a thing, So we're at this birthday dinner, and it's time to pay. And everybody's passing out their checks. Now, I used to be obsessed with burgers and fries. I wouldn't get anything but burgers and fries. So I got a burger and fry, which is pretty much the cheapest thing on the menu. The checks come out, and I look at my aunt, and she looks at me. And she had an argument with my mom. And she was like, your mama didn't send you no money? And she refused to pay for my food. So I called my mom, and my mom came in, like, her work clothes, and came and picked me up from the restaurant, threw the money on the table, and said, I'll take you anywhere you want to go, fuck them. So we constantly had this back and forth pull with this huge divide. It became toxic early on when my mom came back, and she still lived in the house. My grandmother was alive, her husband was alive, and he was sick. We had just found out that he was sick. He had cancer. So now we're trying to help take care of him. We're getting him water. We're getting, taking care of him in the house. He's now in the hospital bed. It's getting worse. And my aunt is Auntie Tony is doing things like stealing the car and going to the bad side of town. And we don't know if she's doing DRUGSs or whatever. We don't know, but we keep having to go rectify whatever's going on. Like, my grandmother would be crying, and she was like, I don't know what's wrong with her. I don't know what's wrong with her. And my mom had a van, so she had the biggest vehicle that everybody could fit in. So we all hopped in the van with my mom to go to the other side of town and find her. And we constantly had to go pull her out of places that she should not have been, repeatedly. She would do stuff like steal out of my piggy bank, because my dad always taught me you should keep every cent that you get, every dime. And she would constantly steal my money. I saved for 3 summers doing chores, all that, and she stole my money 3 times. Me and my mom were in an accident in that same van, and she tried to steal our accident check. So this was a constant thing with this person, and she's very, very violent, a hair-triggered temper, and she's quick to fight people, and she's one of the tallest people in our family. My grandmother I believe she was 6 feet. I think she's either 6 feet or 5'11". So she likes to, show her dominance over people. She likes to fight and beat people up. It doesn't matter what you do. If you cross her, she will fight you. Everybody knows that. So coming up in the story, my grandmother would still come get me on the weekends, but my mom had her own place by this point. It had took her a couple years, you know, and she's working all these jobs, she's saving, she's busting her hump, and I'm just a kid that doesn't understand. So me and her are like butting heads like hard. She works in like male dominated fields, and I want to be prissy because that's what I see around me. My aunt is prissy, my grandma's prissy. We do hair and we do nails, and we're gardening, and we're working in the yard, you know, we're baking stuff from scratch, we're cooking, and she comes in from somewhere with a damn, y'all know them little ties that people put on their heads and stuff, because she's been working, so she has to pull her hair back. She worked at the plant at that time, and I'm just looking at her like she don't even do her nails. I'm just a stupid kid, you know. I don't know. She's not telling me. Nobody's telling me that she's working so hard and she's busting her ass, and you making it hard for her. I had no clue that I was making her life hell. I was going through so much mentally. I was such a bad kid, and well, challenging child. So that goes on. My mom gets her own place, and my aunt is in the Army, and she pops up one day. We find out that she's AWOL. Now, at the time, I didn't know what that meant. I really didn't know. And she had gotten in trouble in the Army, and my mom went to go bail her out or go speak on her behalf. It was like my mom was an extension of my grandma, places that she couldn't go, and my grandma was just stressed the fuck out. So that happens. And she was supposed to report back to the military. My mom gets her a rental car, and she steals it and goes some other place. All on my mom's dime when she tried to help her. Stuff like that had been happening repeatedly, and we were kind of used to the rigmarole with her. It was always something with her every time. So my mom gets her own place, and we find out that my grandmother is sick. By that time, my Auntie Tony, had a child of her own, and so I don't really know the full details, right? I just remember what I remember because I was a kid, and I was like 11, 12 at the time, so I have fond memory. And she had a baby and left the baby with my grandmother to take care of. Now, at that time, my grandmother's husband had passed. She didn't really have an income. She hadn't worked for decades. Like, she was a put up woman. So she was dealing with that and dealing with the bills and the stress from everything, and she developed a heart condition. And we, visited her. She still would come get me. She still was a very present person in my life as a child, and I clung to her like she was my mom, because she was, she was. And she's taking care of the baby. And then my other aunt, I'm gonna name her Aunt Sonia. So we have the oldest aunt, my mom, Aunt Sonia, Auntie Tony, and then Auntie Tanya, in that order. So Auntie Sonia has a baby, and then she starts leaving the baby with my grandma to be babysat as well. So my grandma is full-time with these two babies, like majority of the time. And when my mom and my aunt would notice that she didn't look good, something was wrong, they would offer for her to go to the doctor, and she would go, I can't go to the doctor, I got these kids, what am I supposed to do with them? And she was telling them, like, you work, you have your own life, you have your own child, I'm not going to burden you with that. So we knew at that time that she wasn't going to go do anything about her health. So as the story progresses, I go to middle school, and I apply for this musical arts school, and I don't know if I got accepted yet, but I applied for the musical arts school, and I asked my mom to take me over to my grandma's house after she finished work, because at this time my mom started driving school buses, and we got to spend a lot more time together. I lived with her. We got to try to get our relationship on track. We still had some hang-ups, but we were working, and we had a way better relationship. So I just wanted to let my grandma know that we were doing okay, and I was applying for this school. It was a prestigious school where we lived at. And when we went over there that day, after we had done the orientation for the school, I wanted to bring her the paper. And we go in, and she looked sick. She looked really, really, really sick. And we went in her bedroom, and she used to have this chair that she would sit next to her, like, bed frame. And my mom sat in the chair, and I sat at her feet. She had a recliner in her room, and I was doing her nails like I always did. And she looked at my mom, and she was like, you need to listen to me, and listen to me good. Everything I'm about to tell you, I need you to do. And my mom's like, Mom, what are you talking about? Because she's not understanding why her tone just got so serious. And she tells her, don't stay at my house. I want to be buried in I don't remember, she said a pink dress or something like that. She told us what she wanted to be buried in, what color she wanted to be buried in, how she wanted her funeral. So it's freaking us out. And I looked up at my mom like, what the, And she just like, she listened to her. My grandma's like, look at me when I'm talking, listen to me. So she's going over all this stuff, and she gets to my aunts, and she tells my mom that she's the only one who can do this. She trusts her. And if my auntie gets out of line, like the youngest one, Auntie Tanya, to beat her ass. And she was like, I know she's gonna get out of line with you, and she makes stuff hard for you, beat her ass, and you tell her I said for you to do it. And she said for Auntie Tony, she said, that bitch is evil, don't let her around them kids, and don't let her around this baby. Do you understand me? Mom was like, yes ma'am. What's the big deal? So we both, we leave, we kiss her, we leave, and the whole ride home we were like, that was so strange, it's just so strange. So the next day we get up, we get on the bus, and my mom drove the bus for the school I currently went to, like the middle school I went to at the time. So we're not thinking anything, but I told my mom I wanted to go see my grandmother that day, and she's like, oh, I'm too tired, and I'm begging her. For some reason, I'm just begging her and begging her and begging her, and she's like, okay, we'll go later, like, you need to, let off the gas. So the whole time I'm up, and I'm just like pacing, and I'm debating on calling somebody to take me over there. Like, I wanted to see her really bad. And we get a call, I think around like 7 or 8 o'clock at night, that the baby, Auntie Sonia's baby, her baby dad went to pick up the baby. and my grandmother wasn't answering the phone or answering the door. So he bust through her bedroom window and went back there and seen the kids were screaming, and that nobody was in there with them. So my mom's like, what the hell? So we rush over there, and we get there, and we open the front door, and we hear kids screaming, because this dumbass went and got his baby and left my little cousin there. I'm gonna name her Daisy. So he left her in there, and she's screaming, and she had been wet for hours. She was just screaming, screaming, screaming. And my grandmother was no longer alive, and we found her in the kitchen. Okay, so I had to take a break, y'all. Okay, so that happens, and my mom tries to get my little cousin together, and I have no words to express, but right then and there, I felt like I died with her. I felt like she was the only person on this planet who loved me. I really felt like she loved me, and she was gone. And I didn't have that anymore. It was completely gone. And as a kid, I think I was like 11 when it happened, and it destroyed me. It destroyed me. Ugh. Okay, so the coroners come, and my mom calls the rest of the family, and it was as much of a nightmare as you can guess how that went. She was the glue to our family. She was the light of our family. She was the person who did the holidays, and we went to church and we prayed. She was the last person to be something to me, and she was everything to us. She was. And we have to plan her service and things like that. And some kind of way, I think everybody put their money together. Again, I was 11, and this was very traumatic. But some kind of way, money had came up to go buy her dress that she wanted to be buried in. So the whole family, all of us, go to the mall to get her something to wear. Oh, I'm skipping a part. Before that, my two aunties go over their friend's house, who used to live down the street from us, that we all grew up together. Now, at this point, we know each other's whole family. We've all met. We all grew up together and continue to know each other. And we go to their house because they moved across town. They go to their house. The two sisters, the last two girls, go to the friend's house, and they spend the night. The next morning, they wake up, and my grandmother's funeral money is gone. Now, we still don't know who took the money, and when we asked around, they were all pointing fingers at each other. I still believe to this day that my aunt Tony took that money, because I don't know her to not be that way. So, time goes on, and everybody moves to my mom's new apartment. Now, her apartment was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and it wasn't an apartment. It was like a townhome. It was like a little house. We had a front yard, a backyard. It was a great community. It was nice. I loved it. It was only enough space for us. Everybody came and piled up on my mom, because nobody could really afford to take care of my grandmother's house. My aunt was 19. The youngest aunt was 19 when my grandmother passed. She can't pay for a whole house by herself. So she moved in with my mom and with me, and I shared my room with her. And then my aunt comes back because my mom tells her, hey, your baby. What about your child? So, and people had told her that before. Like, my oldest aunt, she didn't have any kids, so she wanted the baby. And her and my grandmother were talking about it. They were contemplating it. And my mom told my aunt, you need to get your ass down here and get your child, because there's a lot of people that, want to take your baby from you. So my mom took care of my little cousin and me, and helped my auntie and all of that all by herself. And she wound up getting into a bad accident at work on the bus. So she wound up with a spinal injury, and she already had injuries before from some of the jobs that she had done prior to that. So I think that was the final straw for her body, and her body just kind of gave up on her. So she's not well, and now I have to take care of her as her caregiver at 12 and help out with the baby at 12, because my youngest aunt is still working. She can't be home all the time, So it was really, really rough. That time period was rough. Everybody was fighting. My grandmother didn't leave a will. They didn't have insurance. They didn't leave, any of that. I don't think. I don't know. But I know most of that was on my mom. And a couple years had gone by, and my aunt comes to live with us too. So Aunt Tony comes back from wherever she was to get acquainted with her daughter, to figure out if she wants to get a job or what she wants to do, so she can eventually get that independence the same way my grandmother had done for my mom. So my mom facilitated that for her, because she knew how it felt, But it became a disaster. They started bullying me in my own home again. I didn't have privacy. My coming of age moments, little stuff, like I would stuff tissues in my bra, and they would come outside and rip them out of my shirt, like outside when I'm walking to school, because my school was down the street. Little stuff to humiliate me. I even remember one point they came to my school and told the kids that I was not from Texas, and that I was from Louisiana, and I was just making it up. And all the kids started teasing me at school and saying I was crazy. That was, one of the first things. Or my Aunt Tony would tell people that I was a liar. And it'll be like, I'm a kid. You can't be a liar as a kid. What did I do to make you think I'm a liar? It's a thing from a kid being bad and misbehaving to you just saying everything that comes out of their mouth is a lie. Looking back, I think it was because she was trying to, save her own skin, in case I had ever told what had happened. So, my Aunt Tony is like, I'm scared of her. I'm a kid. She's towering over me. I'm very fearful. Their punishments are harsh, and my mom relies on them to help take care of me. So getting me ready for school, my mom is in like one of those little power chairs, so she can't do everything with me, you know? And I just hated her for it. I hated her for not being there. I hated her for not being like me. I hated her for not liking makeup or not liking hair, and the comments she would make about, you know, me liking girly stuff. I hated her. And she didn't really like me that much either, but she was still my mom. And they fought so much. And I'm not talking about like verbal fights. They fought like hands and feet on each other, fight in front of me. Imagine that. So the conditions were already bad. It was already touch and go with all of us. It was always a problem. It was never any peace. Never, ever, ever any peace. They would either fight about food, groceries, me eating, me expressing stuff through my behavior, me being a bad kid. It was just always problems, always. So I would go places with my aunts when my mom, you know, was depressed and sick, not doing well. They would take me out of the state. They would take me to do fun stuff, you know. The abuse, like the SA abuse has stopped, but the psychological and like the physical punishments, I don't know, because my mom and my aunts had always had problems with that. My mom was like, you're going too far. She would always tell them, stop hitting her, keep your hands off my child. They had fights like that too. And my mom would say, why do you keep going with them? Why don't you just leave them alone? And they would tell me about my mom would tell me about them. It would just be a mental hell. It was mental hell. It was like growing up in a high school, but the high schools are your family and you're the little nerd. That's how I felt. And my self-esteem was in the ground. Like when I grew up, I had been called ugly so many times by my aunts and bullied in school, and my auntie would say, you smart, but you dumb as fuck. They would say stuff like that to me, and it just broke me. I didn't know that I was broken like that. So time goes on, and in 2008, Hurricane Gustav hits. And Hurricane Gustav was really bad where we lived at. We lived in Baton Rouge. It was really bad, and on like the last night that we were in my mom's townhome, a tree fell in our roof. And the tree fell like right over my little cousin who was in a walker. I don't even think she was 2 yet. She was in a walker. And we decided we were going to try to escape, because outside in the street was like one of those streets that do this in the middle. And all the driveways were like this, so you can, you know, go down to get in the street to leave. It was one big street and houses and driveways on either side. Excuse me. So we couldn't stay in the house like that, but we had a curfew and National Guard and police making sure everybody stayed stuck in their homes in the storm. Didn't have anything better to do. So we were running out of food. We were exhausted. We were dirty. We were tired. We only were able to take cold baths. So we decided we're going to go to my grandmother's home because we can't stay there anymore. So we escape. And my mom always drives SUV. She's a little tiny thing, but she loves big trucks and big cars. So she's in her SUV, and the water is on the, like, touching the windshield. Like when the windshield wipes are on, it's dipping in the water. The water is that high. And we're not driving down the road anymore. We're just floating down, hoping that we stay straight. So we finally get to my grandmother's house, and the water is up out there too. So I remember I had my little cousin on my shoulders, and we're walking in the house, and the water was like up to my waist. So we finally get in there, and my mom calls my oldest aunt. Now my oldest aunt, I remember her being very accomplished. She was in the Navy. She did her time. She went to war, and she was well off. She was one of the first people I saw that had done the military properly. And she had coins, you know. But because of the trauma with my grandmother's husband and all that, she left after graduation, and she did not come back unless she was traveling to see the baby, or, you know, she was warming up to the idea of getting to know us again. So she held the purse strings for the home because she was the only one who could afford to. When we got there, my mom calls her and goes, hey, what's going on with the lights? What's going on with that? And my aunt goes, oh, I turned them off. Y'all should sell the house and just, you know, forget about it. When my grandma specifically told my mom, do not sell this house in case something happens to somebody and you're in a bad relationship. You don't have to be homeless. You don't have to fight with nobody, and nobody's gonna come take it from you. As long as you take care of it. You let somebody take it from you, you're dumbass. So my mom clung to that, and she's like, no, we're not gonna do that. So when we're thinking we're reaching refuge and somewhere safe, we get there, all the food is spoiled. The refrigerator is disgusting. We had to clean that out. It was bugs and leaves, and nobody had been there all that time. So we didn't get to rest. We cleaned for like 2 weeks. So we were exhausted, we were dirty, we were hungry. It was hell. It was hell all over again. So my aunt, I believe she came, I don't remember when she came, but Aunt Tony comes back to the family home to live with us. Now at this point, I think I'm in middle school, but I'm in another middle school that's close to the district because we have moved now. So I'm going to school, and it's the same old routine. They're arguing, my mom's arguing with them. Other people are coming into the picture, like boyfriends, and at this time my aunt had become a full-blown lesbian, Auntie Tony. I think in the beginning she was not gay, she was straight. I remember she dated a man, and then something happened with them, and she started, you know, molesting me, and then she had a girlfriend. And at that time her girlfriend was a lady named Sydney. I don't know anything else about her, but she always showered me with gifts. So I would get graped, and then she would bring me a gift. And I don't know the irony of it all, right? She brought me the first Lion King that was orange, and I remember it used to smell like pineapples for some reason, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, by this time she became a full-blown lesbian. And their girlfriends and boyfriends had all come into the family issue, or friends were starting to choose sides, and it was just mess. It was so messy. So as time went on, I started to get older, and I get into, you know, middle school and high school where I'm dating, and my aunts are, again, an extension of my mother. So they're able to take me places. I'm going to the mall. I'm doing all these things. And my aunt meets this lady, in Texas, and this lady has 2 little girls of her own. And I thought she was so cool because she was the only one that didn't beat me. She was the only person that didn't beat me up. But she was nice. I thought she was nice. And she joined us now at my grandmother's house too, with her girls. So we have a house full of people where there's really no peace, you know. And we would still do things as a family. And I would have like these flashes of my aunt being inappropriate with me. But I thought I was crazy because I'm listening to them and I'm starting to have some self-doubt. I'm like, maybe I am bad. Maybe I am stupid. Maybe I am dumb and ugly. Like, I truly was feeling those things as a kid. So I started to do things in order for me to try to leave that home early. I would do things like, I would do hair out of the house. I would customize clothes. This was the jerk era. So I used to help people make their clothes. I would make people's clothes. I thought about starting my own clothing line because my grandma taught me to sew. Then I started making music. I have been singing since forever. I've always sang. So I started to get into that in hopes to make some money. And then the internet came out. I became popular online. And when my aunts would see like quote unquote inappropriate stuff, this is a time when they had like that little cheesy joke that was going around Facebook, and it would be like, you put your hand in a cup and there's 2 fingers and that's how you wash a cup, get your mind out of the gutter, right? So I would try to make like my page pop, and they were like, I'm deleting your page. So crush me on that. I started to make music, and my aunt was telling me she wanted to be my manager, my aunt Tony. Like, she would mostly be the person at some point taking me to these things, and I would just always be out of the house and doing something. And because my mom was sick, you know, and I don't know, y'all. She just wanted to be incorporated in my life in some kind of way. So I started working on music, and some kind of way she wound up ruining that for me too. So that was out of the window. Stomped out my music career. I was a dancer, and her new girlfriend, after that, when I got to high school, she was with the new girlfriend, and the new girlfriend had two kids that were around my age, and we danced together. And we got a call from Tiana Taylor when she was looking for auditions for people to be a dancer, and we submitted a video to her, and we got a call back. Now, I couldn't go because I had already went to the military. So when I was in high school, I asked my mom, like when it was around time to graduate, and I skipped a year. I went to a school that was a high school. It was called Career Academy. It was a high school, and you could also do college courses, and you could pick hospitality, nursing, like medical side or whatever. I picked nursing. So I was halfway done with the nursing program, and I had already skipped from 9th to 10th grade. I was in 10th grade, and I was doing college courses, and I don't remember why I didn't stay at that school, but I told my mom I did not want to stay. So she let me go back to regular school, and I went to the school that both of my aunties had graduated from. That was down the street. Okay, I needed a water and a snack break, okay? So when I went to the same school, I had an issue with them transferring the credits over because they don't have college courses being taken, you know? So now I'm doing 10th. They wanted me to go back and do 10th grade to their standard while I was a junior. So I had to do 10th and 11th grade courses at the same time. I had to do some online. I was taking English 2 and 3 at the same time. Math, algebra 2 and 3 at the same time. Like, I had double most of my classes. So I was exhausted, and I was working my ass off to graduate early because I could have just graduated with my class, which was 2015. I was supposed to graduate with 2015's class. But if I had doubled up on those classes, I could have graduated in 2014, which I did. So I was trying to figure out what did I want to do after that, and I wanted to go to college because my youngest aunt, Auntie Tonya, I'm sorry. It's so hard when you get these people fake names. So Auntie Tanya was going to the college up down the street. It was HBCU. I knew it very well. So I wanted to go there. And I asked my mom, I said, can you get me a car so I can go back and forth? Because I had tried to work before or do anything, and they would just stomp that out. Like, nobody feel like taking you to work every day. Nobody gonna feel like doing that shit every day. Catch the bus. It would always be something, you know. But besides me coughing up a goddamn lung, they made it very clear to me. And my auntie, I don't think she had a car yet. My youngest auntie had a car. The second to youngest auntie, she didn't have a car yet. I don't think so. So it was nobody that I could, you know, rely on to take me. And right then, I decided I was not gonna go to college there. So a recruiter comes to my high school and was like, you want to take the SFAB? You know, you heard the SFAB? And I'm like, no. So I take it, and I do good. And they were like, okay, we have this new program where you can go to basic training either like during the summer. If you're a junior or a senior, you can go during the summer, and then you can choose if you want to leave and go after duty, or we can let you go to the guard unit and train with us up until it's time, you know, you're of legal age where you can just go on your own. So I was sneaking off to the guard units from high school to train and get extra time in service or whatever. I had already decided I was going to go, and I didn't tell none of my family that I was doing that. So, because you know, when you're a senior, you have like half classes or whatever like that. So that's what the deal was. I would sneak off during that time and just tell my mom I had full classes. So anyways, it comes the time for me to graduate, right? And I tell my mom, I'm thinking about going to the military. And she did not want me to go. She was like, what the hell? Like, the military? Because I think in her head, she thinks of me as like prissy and soft, and why would you want to do that, you know? But I was serious. I was dead ass serious about going. And I had talked to my recruiter, and it got to a point where I only needed their signatures because the legal age in Louisiana is 17. I was 16, and I had just started senior year at that point. And I only had a couple more months since I was 17, and the rules were, as long as you were 6 months within your legal age, whatever your state is, of 17th birthday or whatever, you could go. You just need your parents' consent, because you're still within that 6 month, unless you want to wait the 6 months. I was not waiting them 6 months. So we showed up at the house, me and the recruiter, to my mom, and she begrudgingly signed. So now we get the second, this was a week after I graduated high school, that I'm signed up to go to the Army. And we get the second interview with the recruiter. And my mom, we had agreed to lie and say we didn't know my dad, so they wouldn't have to get his signature. But it was stuck the first time. But when the recruiter came for the second appointment, she was talking and then said she fucking knew him. So the recruiter was like, we gonna need that signature, ma'am. So I don't remember what we did to get out of that or whatever, because my dad, he visited and he's called and we kept in contact and all that. But by then my dad had become really, really sick, and he has ALS. It used to be called Lou Gehrig's. So it ran through his side of the family. Most people had it and died from it. I'm trying to see what my baby doing. So he wasn't like readily, available. I think he was living in what we call high rises, like the medical high rises. I think he was there at the time. So the recruiter was like, oh, don't worry about it, we'll just have our recruiting office in Dallas find your dad and get him to sign. So now I'm like disappointed. I'm like, oh my god, you ruined it for me. You know how teenage girls are, so dramatic. So I'm freaking the fuck out, and it's time for me to go to MEPS. Now MEPS is where people say they did the duck walk and stuff like that. And yeah, our MEPS was in New Orleans. So the recruiter picked me up early that next morning, and he told me to pack for 2 nights. So I packed a bag for 2 nights, and I get all the way up there. He drives me to New Orleans, which is like I want to say an hour and a half, probably less than that. Most people say 45 minutes because they drive like bats out of hell. But he took me to New Orleans, to the MEPS or whatever. And MEPS was very strange. You get like your breakfast, and then they start like, being strict and screaming at you and shit, try to give you a taste of what the military is going to be like. And I did my little exam, and finally the next day, they're doing personalized interviews with each candidate. And it's my turn to go. And the lady starts inquiring about my dad. Now, the way that I grew up, I found out that my dad was an immigrant. Now, in Dallas, I went to a private school in Dallas, and excuse me, ooh, I drink one fucking soda and here I go, ruining my video. I'm trying to be poised and, anyways. So, the second language was always Espanol, and that was not something that was new to me. Now, when I came to Louisiana, in Louisiana, the language that you have to learn is French. Most people know French. They speak broken French. That's just what it is. But I knew Spanish, so I was the weirdo. I was told to stop doing that. I need to focus on school and whatever. So I kind of like didn't, if you don't use it, you kind of lose it type of thing. So the lady starts inquiring about my dad, and my dad, he taught me Spanish as well, and I knew all of his friends, and this was just a thing. He would talk to me in Spanish, but we wouldn't speak in Spanish when my mom was around. It was just our little thing. And the MEPS sergeant starts inquiring about my dad, and she's like, where's your dad from? And I'm like, Texas. And she's like, where's your dad from? So now it's turned into an interrogation, because I'm giving her all the wrong answers. I'm extremely nervous. I'm fidgeting. I'm a kid. I'm fucking 16. Why are you doing this? So she's just going. And she asked me, was he ever in the military? And I go, no. And she's like, call him up. And it was another person that came in. So the phone is ringing, and she calls the recruiting office in Dallas, who were supposed to be tracking down my dad. And my dad is there, and he's speaking to them. And he gives his social, and he signs, and they fax it and all that over, and they talk to him. And she asked the recruiter over the phone at the recruiting station in Dallas to ask my dad, had he served? And he said yes. And I was like, And she was like, what branch? And he goes, Air Force. And when she was like, well, what happened on such and such date? And he didn't want to talk about it. But he cracked a joke, and he said they thought I was going to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I wasn't doing that dumb shit. Come to find out, he was AWOL. And he had joined to get full citizenship or whatever during that time. My dad is old. He was old at that point. So I don't know at what time. I think it was either like the 80s or the 70s. I don't know for sure. I don't remember all the details. And I never got a chance to ask. So I was pissed. I thought he was going to ruin this whole thing for me. So they're having this whole conversation, and I'm sitting there looking dumb, because I don't know any of this about my dad at all. So that happens, and I spend 2 more days at MEPS. You're not supposed to spend more than a day and a half, 2 days max at MEPS. I spent 4. So I didn't have enough clothes. I didn't have any like pads or anything. The recruiter had to go and buy me an extra pair of clothes and pads, because my cycle hat came on. So that was, that was fucked up in itself. So fast forward, and they let me in the Army, and I get ready to go to boot camp. So I'm telling my family that I'm going to boot camp or whatever, and I had a little boyfriend that was in the National Guard or whatever. So he's supposed to be training me on what they're going to be doing and how to do the turns and the walks. I'm just not catching on at all. I'm just not getting it. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be so bad. So I go to the Army, and it was what it was, right? I did okay. And then come toward the end of basic, I break my hip. So that is a whole other story time in itself. But I'm going to skip it for this sake. And I'm going to end this video. I guess I'll end this video right here, and I'll come back and finish and give y'all a part 2. I don't know how many parts this damn story is going to have. But thank y'all for watching.